for Stien Entertainment right here in South Africa. Hear it for him. Yugen Blakrok is here as well. A round of applause for Yugen Blakrok. Also a musician here in South Africa. Yeah, you could sit right here. And our moderator today, we had to make a quick switch. Unfortunately, Slicker couldn't be with us here. So we have somebody who also knows quite a bit about the South African hip-hop music industry. He's been writing for OK Africa, so it's a pleasure and a real blessing to have you here today and have you sit in. Please make some noise for Sabelo. All right, so Sabelo, over to you.
Afternoon, everyone. Welcome, guys. Yeah, so this is the South African Hip Hop Innovation and Developments panel. I'm obviously not Slicker, but I know a thing or two about South African hip hop, as he said. So I'll do my best. I think we'll start with just you guys introducing yourselves, and I mean, the two of you are rappers, but tell us what you do and all that.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Yugen Blakrok, MC, rapper, writer, all of that. From Joburg here. Really happy to be here and have this chat, and looking forward to hearing, everyone's perspectives as well. Pretty, whatever one.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Priddy Ugly, and I'm a rapper, label exec, writer, a hip-hop fan, a student, an African, and I am humbled to be here. Greetings to everybody from all across the country, all across the continent, and hopefully we have some really engaging conversations.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vaughn. I've been in the hip-hop industry for a while. Well, hip-hop industry, the music industry. I came in, independently through hip-hop, and I currently run a record label that falls under the Stien Entertainment group called Sabelo. It's an independent label with a number of artists that I sort of play an executive role for, as well as a management role. And I'm excited to hear mostly what you guys have to say, and see what kind of discussion we can have around hip hop and the state of it in South Africa and Africa.
I personally, I don't like this question, but I think it's crucial that I ask. There's been, these talks about SA hip-hop being dead. I personally don't believe it's dead, but I would like to know what you guys think. And for anybody who doesn't know, this is because with the arrival of Amapiano, people don't think that two legends can coexist. But I would like to just hear from you guys. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm so obvious. No, obviously. Hang on. Yeah, let me address it. Of course not. I mean, hip-hop is dead. This phrase, when Nas dropped the album, the whole world thought this is how it's going to go. There's no such thing, obviously. We had hip-hop and Kwaito coexisting when hip-hop arrived in the country. Kwaito went on to become Gom and went on to become Amapiano evolution. The same thing with hip-hop as well. It has to go through its own evolution, allow us to express who we are in the moment as well. I mean, a culture like that doesn't just, get taken out because a new form of music comes about. No.
Yeah, I share I share the same sentiment. I think hip-hop is dead is a very strange thing to say. I mean, it's an established genre. I think it's been around for 50, 60 years globally. As Yugen says, there's been hip-hop has coexisted with multiple genres throughout the years. It's not a new thing, and it's a strange thing, and I think it's reflective of our society. I don't think it's necessarily got to do anything to do with music. I don't think hip-hop fans have stopped being hip-hop fans because there's a new genre. It's outrageous, but I think that like the important thing to sort of investigate in that in that specific statement and that topic. I think it lies more in not whether hip hop is dead or not, because I don't even think that's worth addressing. But it's more the conversation needs to be more around like why is it that people are saying that, you know, and why is it that people specifically the South African population feel like something must die for something else to live. And I think that it's reflective of our society, and I think it's a bigger problem in you know, in our country. It's not necessarily a music, and it just shows its face that way in the music industry, you know. So I think that there's a lot of investigation that we could go and we can get deep into looking at that. But I mean to keep this strictly sort of about the music, I think that hip hop has never died, and I think we've kind of, I mean, just to bring it a little bit closer to the stage, we released Priddy Ugly's sophomore album Soil this year, which is, I mean, if you listen to the album, that's a straight hip hop album. There's nothing gimmicky about that album. There's no radio songs, targeted radio. There's nothing that's on a trap beat. Everything was on stripped down instrumentals, and Priddy was really in his writing bag. So we put out an album that sounds like that in the hype of Amapiano, and that album has done really well when you see the numbers on the back end. And when you see those numbers on the back end, it shows that no matter what is popular at the time, there's still culture that exists in each and every single genre, you know. So hip hop is dead is honestly, it's an outrageous statement. I mean, it's disregarding to a culture that has existed for a very long time, and it also, in my opinion, it's disregarding to Amapiano. I mean, like, Amapiano can exist. It's an incredible invention, and it's an incredible sonic, and it's done so well. I don't think that it does any justice to start speaking about it only existing because it stepped on something else. No, it can exist. It's bigger than that, you know. And it deserves its shine in that way. And I think there's proof in artists like you were saying, like they were saying earlier, Blackie and Nasty, and those guys are still doing their thing in the midst of this new popular wave of music. So if it was dead, I mean, we wouldn't have a Blackie, and we wouldn't have a Nasty right now doing things on the continent, and we wouldn't have guys like Priddy Ugly putting out music of that nature. So it's just like, you just have to look past the drama of the argument and just look at the facts, and you will see that it's an outrageous statement. Yeah.
And you know, as outrageous as it is, you know, perception is a big thing in entertainment and culture. And you know, I was listening earlier with the panel with Busiswa, and she was just talking about, you know, even platforms like radio, they really gravitate towards what's popular. You know, they're like, oh, it's not Amapiano, so they won't really pay that much attention to it. So a question I want to ask you guys is, how has that affected you, you know, and I think maybe Priddy can answer this because he hasn't spoken, you know, in terms of like the bookings, the airplay. I mean, I know the streams are good, but how has that perception affected just how you're moving as a hip hop artist in 2021?
All right, I think for me it's very, very different because I've never been the type of artist to get the biggest amount of radio play anyway. So, and like Vaughn was just saying, we dropped an album titled Soil, which is a straight up hip hop album. And we weren't trying to put any radio singles on it. We weren't trying to chase a particular type of market. We weren't trying to infuse it with other sounds so that we're more relatable to the current sound, which is Amapiano, or I'd rather say dance music than say Amapiano music, you know? Because ultimately, as like Africans and South Africans, we have a very big dance culture. But even if you look at it, like a lot of the people who are the pioneers of the dance culture, removing the producers, I'm saying like the artists who are doing the Amapiano music, some of the biggest artists that are doing Amapiano music are hip-hop artists, you know? Because we also need to understand that hip-hop is not like one-dimensional. It's multifaceted, you know? So say in the States, when they came out with hip-hop and they were doing hip-hop in the Bronx, obviously they were sampling whatever they were sampling. They were sampling classic music that was, you know, that they could relate to, that was somewhat indigenous to them, you know? And a big part of hip-hop and the hip-hop performance aspect of it is rap. And rap is rhythm and poetry. And you can rhythm and poetry on anything.
Everywhere, yeah.
On jazz music, because if you're into, deep-rooted hip-hop, it's on like jazz beats, but there are people who are doing hip-hop on trap soul beats. There are people who are doing hip-hop on R&B beats. There are people who are doing hip-hop on trap beats, so it's just that they've all become like sub-genres of hip-hop. So I even think hip-hop is just as Vaughn was saying, it can never die. It's like I feel like we multiply. We will evolve. We'll find different ways to speak to our people. So, yeah, granted, like the die-hard hip hop purists are not getting played on the radio because maybe the hip hop is not making people dance. Like my music is about substance. It's about like the story. Is about the educational aspect of the music. And radio often is not trying to be educated. It's like, we're struggling so much. Everyone just wants to dance. We don't want to hear about your stories and or your consciousness. We just want to have a good time and de-stress about like what's happening in the world, the state of the nation, the government. So it definitely has affected hip hop in the spaces like the radio. But there are still hip hop artists, like I said, who are, like Vaughn said as well, who are thriving in this time. The Black Keys of the world. Vocalistic is a hip hop artist. He regards himself as a rapper. One of the biggest Amapiano songs in the country right now is a Casper song. And Casper Nyovest still regards himself as a hip hop artist. So, yeah.
I think like what you said something about perception plays a role in a huge role in the music industry, and I think that's true. I mean, the perception plays a huge role in anything. I mean, I learned that when I came into the music industry, because the first thing I realized when I entered into the music industry 5-6 years ago or whatever as an independent was that everybody seems like they know what they're doing, but nobody knows what they're doing. So you're right. Perception is an important thing, and perception does really play a huge role in sometimes the advancement of an artist or the advancement of people in the industry as a business side or labels or whatever the case is. But the thing with perception is that it's based on popular. It's based on what's popular. It's very much turns at the same time. People ride a popular wave and then they use that to build a perception and to use it to their advantage, right? So I'm saying like when you're talking about how it affects artists, hip hop artists on radio and bookings and things like that, of course it does. Because people buy what's fashionable and people book what's popular and radios play what's popular, and that's a cycle. So of course it's natural that it affects the people that are not popular at the moment, but the key thing is to not do things to be popular, especially if you're in the arts and if you're in the music. The key thing is to identify what is the thing I'm going to spend 10,000 hours perfecting, and how close is that thing to me and who I am at my core. Because if I do that, I'm going to be able to do it for 10,000 hours. And when the wheel of popularism turns and it shines a light on what you may be doing, which happens throughout history, then you're not misplaced. But if you chase the lights just trying to be popular, you're going to run in circles. And that's like a trap that a lot of people that fall into because of the pressure of the no bookings, the less radio play, the less support that you get at your shows, etc. But you got to weather that storm.
I find that interesting coming from a label head, if I may, because as a guy who's in charge of running the business, the bottom line is very important. And this leads into my next question, and I'll start with you, but you guys can also answer. How, with the pandemic, again, it's affected everyone really, but artists, you guys are hit hard the most because if there are no performances, there's no income. How have you, on the subject of innovation, what new ways have you come up with to run your business?
Can I go?
You can.
Nothing new, actually.
Okay.
There's been nothing new. We've spent the last 2.5 years touring Europe, Spain, France, Germany, all these guys. And when the pandemic hit, because we're playing a lot of hip hop festivals and also a lot of mixed music as well, you'd find that because the cats from the US couldn't come, all these borders were closed, we were up there, so we sort of capitalized on it. You know, we were the international act in Germany because no one else is coming through. You know what I mean? So in that instance, I do find that, like with a lot of South African artists that find themselves in this space, it's easier to get in there because it's a system that works. One, you know. So we're gonna compare it to here. It's a whole other discussion. You know, if you want to talk about industry and radio, there's a protocol, there's certain things that they have to do. And as a hip hop artist, the last thing you want to do is be popular on radio. The last thing you want to do is bend yourself to what's popular. You know, this is what drives us. This is the movement. This is the foundation and the philosophy of it. You know what I mean? So to maintain that, there will always be an audience for everyone with your scientific raps, nerd raps, your Mickey Mouse raps, anything. There's space for that, all these subgenres, you know. So the trick now is to reach the person, which we found through the internet, you know. We've found our ways around TV, not being playlisted, around radio and all these other platforms. You've got the internet, direct access to the person who wants to listen to music as opposed to having a middleman. If you're looking at the whole industry itself, everyone is jumping onto the net because record labels aren't making the money that they were making when they had us in these contracts. You know what I'm saying? So we do have much more power. You know, there's printing companies that will work directly with the artist and ship their stuff. So you don't even have to go to a gig to buy an artist's merch. You know what I mean? We've got the internet. You can link up. You know what I mean? You've got the potential to handle it. And the world is bigger than our country. That's another thing.
Very important.
This South African hip-hop thing needs to be more than just Josie-centric hip-hop, because we actually don't know what's happening in Mpumalanga, Western Cape, Eastern Cape, and all these places. We need to look at that a bit more. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say something similar. I don't think much has changed. I mean, things have changed, but the way that in my opinion, I mean, what I focused on, what I decided to do when things quietened down in terms of shows and travel and things like that, because that obviously is a straightforward effect that you see. Okay, there's no venues. Okay, there's no bookings happening in and around Johannesburg or in Cape Town or whatever it may be. So what I did strategically was I started going, okay, well, what does it look like? What does the next thing look like? And the next thing to me, I started thinking about 5 years. And I said, okay, well, let me pick these artists up. Let's start working on things that are true to them. Let's start resetting a few things from a creative perspective. Let's actually spend more time in the studio. Let's make albums. Let's take it back to then. Let's do something that is against the grain right now. Because in a pandemic, on the turn of popularism, there's so much panic. People stop doing things that they were passionate about because they have to survive. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's the reality. Fortunately, with the structure and the support that I found myself in, I was able to afford a different opportunity to the artists that I work with and say, let's just keep it in. Let's come back together. Let's figure out what the next 2 years could look like. Let's use this to create and set up for the next time that this thing turns. You know, so and all of those things are tied closely to what we identify in an artist and what's the next best move for the artist. And I truly believe if you do the right things for the artist that's aligned as close to who they are as possible, I think that the bottom line is positively affected. And for a longer time. Because it's easier to be who you are for a longer time than it is to just do something to, you see. So, and I agree with Yugen on the thing is like the worst thing that you want to do is just to try and chase the popularism. You lose that thing in 5 years. People want to make $10 million in a summer. But you can make $10 million in 10 years and have a great life and a good career and a successful business. But the craze will make you forget that this is a long journey and this is a long thing that we have to work through, you know?
So long-term mentality, basically. And Priddy, you know, you just put out an album like a few months ago. How can you just break down the experience of pushing an album in, again, the pandemic is not something we can downplay. How was that different? How was it better? How was it not better than before when, you know, everything was open? Yeah.
For me, I'll speak about the creation process of the album firstly. Is when we went into the pandemic last year, it awarded me time to be in the studio. and work on music of substance. I looked at what was happening in the world, what was happening, what radio was feeding to us, what media was feeding to us. And to be honest, I wasn't receiving a lot of substance. So for me, there was a gap there for us, you know. Me and Vaughn had countless conversations about like, how do we put out music that we love making and not have to chase, you know, the next hit or chase what's popular on radio, but staying true to ourselves. This is actually the opportunity for us to sit down, log into studio, and I get it, not everyone has the opportunity to sit there and has a studio too that they can go to. So other people are thinking about the bag and are thinking about, okay, I need to hop onto Amapiano, I need to do A, B, and C, you know. But for us, I've been doing this for a very long time, you know. I'm 30 years old now. I've been doing it 16 years now, you know. 14 years ago, I got my first record deal. So as a result, it's because, you know, for me, everything godly earns patience and time, you know. So if you're working on art and you treat it like art, if you're treating it like business, then yeah, you're gonna have to keep the company afloat and have to do whatever is swaying the company and what media is saying. But if you're treating it like art, you understand that like art has an audience irrespective anyway. So what it also helped us with just in the creation of the music was that everyone was home, you know. Everybody was not in the clubs as much, you know. So people were on their phones. People were sitting at home. People had the time now to listen to substance. People had the time now to listen to your stories. And we have the internet. So it allowed us to also be very creative with the internet. You can speak to your audience without having the meet and greets. You can just open your Instagram and go on Insta Live and play snippets of your music to your audience. See who likes the music, who isn't liking the music. But irrespective of who's liking it, it was really about us and me, the artist, and the music that I wanted to put out and the messaging that I was trying to portray with it. So for me, it actually really, really worked out because it gave me time to introspect, retrospect, sit within myself, figure out where I'm trying to see myself in the next 5 years, not where I'm trying to see myself in the next month, you know, because December. Everyone is working towards December. And as a result, even when it came to dropping the music, we weren't thinking, okay, what's going to get us that December hit so we can be touring throughout December. In fact, I'm a father, so I was thinking about, like, how can I make music that I want to make and still have time to sit with my daughter? You know, to a point where how can I make the music that I love to make so that I don't have to be touring throughout December, chasing the bag, and just making music that I really love to make, and it resonated with the people because even in this time of the pandemic, in my 16 years of doing this, with my least commercial album, it's been my most successful album.
Crazy. And it's interesting that you talk about introspection. You know, you were also at home, and you said this in an interview where you were like, basically what you're saying is the album is the way it is because of the downtime that you had, where you mentioned that you actually revisited some hip-hop classics. You know, I think you mentioned Illmatic and Reasonable Doubt, which I guess it explains why the album sounds the way it does. You've explained that, and I just told the audience, but Yugen, you're already operating on that side of the spectrum in hip-hop. What did the pandemic do for you creatively? Yeah.
Not as much as I'd hoped to. I didn't write as many songs as I wanted, for sure. But I mean, I think with the same with most artists, we spent a big part of that time being caught in the anxiety, being caught in the uncertainty. And these can be blocks, you know. It's not like every artist needs to be super down in the dumps and they're going to come out with a killer album. No, sometimes it can be a bit debilitating. You know, you don't know where you're going to be next month. You don't know, you know, what you're going to be doing. But I do think, and some things I've also learned in the time that's passed that I think is always nice to share with other artists, is that, like Priddy said, everyone is at home. So they do have more time. You know, you've watched the industry have its cycles where at some point, I mean, there used to be a time where you're dropping the album and albums are the thing. And then we sort of moved to having a single. So you'd find a lot of hip hop artists and other genres not really putting effort into making albums, bodies of work, things that, you know what I mean? It's more single, what's the next single? And that's not really sustainable in that way, you know? So right now I do feel like there are more ears ready for that, to listen to a full album while you're at home, after your Zoom meeting, in between dishes, bloody blah. The way that we're consuming music is changing again. The same way that radio influenced us to stop having 7.5-minute tracks to that 3.5. It changed how we make music. You know, now you're making things so that it just fits it in 3.5. You're changing yourself for the mechanism. You know what I'm saying? So I do find in this instance, because the people are there, the internet definitely, whether you're looking at merch, there's been a big rise in folks getting their gigs online, whether it's your Instagram or your Facebook. There's that merch side of it. There's talks, you have your Zoom meetings, you can share your skills, you can give creative writing. I like this kind of stuff, you know what I mean? Going to schools, talking to these kids. It's still operational, you know, the fact that, you know, it's on screen, it doesn't change what we've been doing all along, all this time. It just means that we just have to look, there's even more avenues than before. You don't have to now take a bus or a train or whatever to wherever you need to be. You can have your meetings right there, you know what I mean? I do feel like as much as it's depressing a bit, it is also empowering if you do know where to look, if you do try and find a network of different people, not just I'm an MC, I must hang around with MCs. Find a network with DJs and promoters and all these folks. We played a lot of shows where people are sitting down, you know, COVID shows where they're trying to see, is this gonna work? Is it worth us investing money into bringing back festivals when everyone is at home? We play to folks sitting down, you know? And I mean, lucky for me, my music's so nice and slow, I'm never asking anyone to jump, you know? So it works just fine from your chair, you know? So these kind of things you also learn with other artists, whether it's from the trap, you know, you're all waiting for the drop and then you're the only one jumping on stage because everyone is sitting down. You know what I mean? So it gives you the opportunity to see where you can adjust yourself, where you can get better. And also open yourself up to more than what you do, more than just hip hop shows. We will be hip hop, but you can be hip hop at a World Music Festival, you know what I mean? Let's be hip hop in other places and not just limit ourselves to hip hop and only South African hip hop as well. Yeah.
And the pandemic has, again, this is a point that was raised in one of the panels that I saw here, that, you know, with all these online shows, it's kind of like an automatic documentation of what you're doing, you know, which doesn't always happen if you're just like performing wherever. You're not sure if somebody is recording this or what, and there's been like a boom in content, you know, and again, there was this show of yours that I was watching. It was so beautifully shot. I was like, this is crazy. And Priddy, when you released your album, you followed it up with like as part of the rollout, there was like a documentary. Would you say that was inspired by where we find ourselves in, or if, let's say, the pandemic never happened, was the rollout always going to be the same? Yeah.
Yeah, for me, just as far as the rollout is concerned, even just going back to when you were speaking about, so my album is titled Soil, and as part of our rollout, we had a segments of the album called Soil Diaries, which was just a documentation of like us conceptualizing the album, all the BTS that we had in the studio, the behind the scenes of shooting the music videos, the conversations with the team, letting the audience in on the team behind Priddy Ugly, because it's not just Priddy Ugly. You know, there is a Vaughn Thiel. There are the producers. There's the Zuchi Coke Dope, you know, Shooter Coombs, Uichi, Hercules, you know, the producers, you know. The guy who did the artwork, who is an amazing, you know, artist, painter, Dumisang Kalipa. So it allowed us to let the audience in on the people behind the album, because where that came from for me was we need to document our source, especially as Africans and as South Africans. And when I look at the artists that I grew up listening to, which were mainly Kwaito artists from South Africa, Mabaputi, TKZ, Zola, Brown Dash, and even taking it back to POC days, there isn't a lot of documentation that you can find online or anywhere. Because sometimes I want to see, like, what did a Mapaputi studio session look like?
Yeah.
And I can't find it.
Yeah.
I want to know who was the guy who, Mapaputi shot a video back in the 90s, or could have been early 2000s, where he's literally like floating in a shack.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I watched that and I was like, that's what.
Sorry to interrupt you. Tell you an interesting fact about that video.
Sure.
Lymphatic Tabs was part of the crew that shot that
What?
Yeah.
Lymphatic
He told me the
Tabs,
story.
so-
He says they were on a plane.
Exactly.
That video was shot on a plane. Crazy.
Dude, if you guys go see the videos, it's what is the title of the song? Do you remember?
Izinja. Yeah.
And Mapaputi's is in the shack, and he's like literally like floating.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I wondered how he did that.
It's crazy.
And the crazy story behind that is that that video was a 900,000 rand video.
Yeah.
Back
There was a lot of
then,
money. There was a lot of money involved.
and they booked out an aeroplane.
Yeah.
And they literally had the aeroplane dip down.
Yeah.
And go up, and you know. And that's how he was literally like just floating on the thing.
Yeah.
And but I only found that out last week.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
We're pressed for time.
Sorry, can I
yeah.
just say something? I just want to pivot just quickly because I
Yeah.
want to see there's comments early, just now.
Sure.
Priddy was talking about a team behind Priddy Ugly. I think one thing that I think there needs to be a lot of focus on in the South African industry that really like irritates the life out of me is the disregard for producers and the way producers are treated on a business level. I think that there's a South African culture that needs to change very quickly in the music space where producers are called at any hour of the day to go and work on a record with somebody. That person puts out a record, tours the country, and that producer doesn't have a contract in place. That producer doesn't have his royalties in place. That producer doesn't have his publishing. That producer isn't paid. That's the type of thing that creates the same thing that creates the conversations around hip hop is dead and we hate ourselves and we need to beat ourselves down to feel better about ourselves within our own culture. So I feel like on that note, I want to mention that because I want to say it because I think it's important. But I also think that like I'd like to hear from you guys if it's something that's strictly a South African issue mostly, and if you guys have experience from your countries or your spaces, if there's the same thing that happens in your areas. Because I think that needs to be formalized a lot better, and there needs to be greater repercussions for producers that are disregarded and not getting their share of the music and the work that they put in, because they're the actual lifeblood of the genres that people dance to and people listen to, and they're the reason things continue. So I just wanted to say that, yeah.
So if anybody in the audience has an answer to Vaughn's question or has a question for the guys, please, now this is your time. I don't know where the microphone is. Any hands? No hands? Nobody wants to say anything? Okay.
Hi guys, thanks so much everyone for the insights, sharing your personal stories, how you went through this time, and what the future might be looking like. My name is Lorenz. I'm here actually as artist manager for Wamwiduka. They will be playing tonight. I'm based in Zanzibar, Tanzania.
Oh, wow.
It's been 6 years now. I'm on the island. And on the question for the producers, it's the exact same story in Zanzibar and Tanzania as well. For both hip hop, but also the popular genres. So it's, the big artists, they just pay the producers a small share and they take all the rights and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's very frustrating because I think that like you cannot expect to not service the fundamental structures of the making of music. You do you know what I'm saying? It's an outrageous thing that exists. So like in your own worlds, if you guys ever encounter anything like that, please address it with a lot of fury because it's not right. And if you need to take legal action and you need to do things like that, then do it. Don't even think twice about it because people profit off people's work all the time, especially in South Africa and in Africa. and it's not fair. And what happens at the end of the day is that the industry suffers, because those people stop being exploited, and when they stop being exploited, the music stops, and we can't afford that.
There's a question.
Good afternoon. My question is this, right? As
Can you tell us your name?
Clinton. My name is Clinton. My question is this. As a young producer, when I meet an artist, we work based off passion. We have a vibe, and we create something. Tomorrow, when that guy turns, and I don't get a share, how do I then start to fight the case? Because you need lawyers, right? Coming from a disadvantaged home, I don't have money to pay a lawyer. What platform do I then use to get what belongs to me?
Yeah, that's. I mean, that is the problem. But I think that. So this is the problem. So a lot of producers do work with passion, because the real reason you do this is because you're good at it and you believe in it, right? And that, unfortunately, is being exploited. So what you might need to do then, if you don't have the resource for lawyers, because it is an expensive exercise and it is difficult to get that right. But if you don't have the resource for legal action, then you need to be smart about the way you're executing your work. What I mean by that is, are you recording the artist? If you're recording the artist, do not send the SIPs. Do not send the song. Send a low mixed MP3 if he wants to listen to it. Because if he wants to put out a low quality record, then that's on him or on her. But in reality, just be smarter about the asset that you're creating. Keep your asset. Hold the music. Don't send SIPs. Don't let them get into the position where they can mix and master without clearance, without paperwork in place, without an EFT into your bank. So you if you're not going to be able to fight after the case, prepare ahead of the time. But just do what you can to not allow it to happen. Forget passion. Those people are passionate about screwing you over.
Yeah.
You can't be a solution to people committed to being a problem.
Yeah.
So when that's the case, then protect yourself.
And how do you deal with artists that always run away when paperwork has to be done?
You deal with them by allowing them to run away. And then you find the artists that don't run away when there's paperwork, because those people are business people. Those people will grow the industry. Those people that run away because of paperwork, they're not supposed to be here. They're not supposed to be doing this thing. They must put the music on SoundCloud, and they must do what they have to do over there. Yeah. But if you must honestly, guys, become comfortable with letting go of that nonsense. Let go of it. It doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve the industry. It doesn't do anything for anyone. If they run, they must just run as far as they can and never come back.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for our panelists, and thank you to everybody who came for this session. Just closing, I think it will be very important to say, just mention maybe an aspect just of hip hop that how you see it in the future. I'll tell you how I see South African hip hop going. I don't think we'll always be the most popular, but we're used to that. If you've loved South African hip-hop, we've always come second to dance music in this country, and I am not worried. Priddy's still going to be here rapping to thousands and thousands of people. Yugen is here, and yeah, that's how I see the future shaping, and I think there's such great acts coming up right now. Those are my closing words. What do you guys think?
I agree. I'll try and keep it short. It's not going to go anywhere. But like Vaughn said, we do need to put more focus on the business side of things, whether it is by just gearing yourself up by learning what you need to in the industry, or surrounding yourself with folks that can direct you in the right way. And then what else? I think that's it. Nothing's happening to hip-hop, y'all.
Okay. Yeah,
It's good.
nothing.
Yeah,
Vaughn?
we're fine.
Yeah, I think I'm excited about the next couple of, the future of hip hop, especially in the next couple of years. I think after a pandemic, I think there's a lot of reality that needs to be told, a lot of stories that need to be told, a lot of connecting that needs to happen, and I think that we will see that happening over time. So I'm excited about the future of South African music, but specifically South African hip hop. I know that it might feel dull, but I don't think it's the case. I think that there's a lot of talent brewing. I think I've seen with my own eyes. I've been in studio with incredible artists that are not known right now, but they will be known in a few years' time, and they will tell the stories of these days. So I'm excited about that. I also think that if I have a role to play in South African hip hop, and I think that if other people continue to do the right things within the industry and within the space, I'm also excited about the formalization of it. I'm excited about the opportunity that presents itself to do the right things, to get producers their royalties and the right publishing splits, and to get the business side of this lucrative global industry formalized and respected on that level. So I'm excited about that opportunity. And on a talent level, I don't think South Africa's ever lacked talent. I don't think Africa's ever lacked talent in that space. So that's obviously going to come through. I'm not even worried about that. But yeah, the next couple of years are going to be very inspiring. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see a rise. I don't know about first place and second place and stuff like that. Like that stuff is just like that's kind of what people talk about when they don't really know what they talk about. First, second, no one's running a race. You know, that is like we can't do those things. We can't talk about first place and second place. We're making art, and we're turning art into business, and we're making lives, we're building careers. You know, it's not a race. So I think that if we have to think like that, there will always be a culture of who's killing who and who's on top of who, which shouldn't really exist in a space where it's creation, you know. So I'm not concerned about that. I'm very excited about the possibilities of the formalization, and I'm very excited about the talent. I mean, Priddy will tell you that there's tons of artists that even he works with on a low-key level, writing and getting stuck into different types of different parts of the business that were slept on before. I think those things are coming to the forefront now, and it's going to be an exciting couple of years. Yeah.
For sure. I'm super excited about the growth of African music, South African music, and South African hip-hop. And I think just removing the aspect of adapt or die, we also need to understand as hip-hop acts that we do need to evolve. Like any industry evolves, you know. If we take vehicles, for instance, you know, if we just said that we only need to use combustion engines and we can't, and cars can't go into automatic and they need to stay manual and we're only going to use petrol, then we're never going to evolve, we're going to stay behind. But we also need to integrate ourselves with what is happening in the current spaces, come up with more innovative ways to sell ourselves, to market ourselves, and not every single hip-hop artist has to just solely be a hip-hop artist. We are creators. We can be creative directors. We can be creative directors of companies. We can be writers. We can go into copywriting. We shouldn't just be looking at it as a one-dimensional thing. So I think we should all, as hip-hop artists more specifically and creators, just like expand on our creativity and know that there's so much more that we can do than just be the hip-hop act. We need more writers, we need more managers, we need more labels, we need more radio platforms, more media platforms, we need more videographers to get more creative, we need to do more short films, we need to integrate our music in different spaces, not just on CDs and not just on USB. Let's put them in movies. Let's create our own movies. Stop waiting for people to give you the opportunity. Stop waiting for the government to do something for you, because they're not going to do anything for you, you know? Take it into your own hands, be creative, be innovative, and yeah, just keep going.
Thank you so much, guys.
It's incredible. A round of applause for our panel. Sabelo, thank you so much for coming through with such short notice. And real quickly, before you guys go, if you could just give us your social media handles real quick. I realized I didn't do that before. Very important.
I am Priddy_Ugly on all platforms. That's PRIDDY_Ugly across all social media platforms.
I am, so it's classics only, but it's when there's no A, it's an X, CLX. Oh man, you see, you're gonna make it. Classics only with an X, yeah. On all Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah, Yugen Blakrok on all socials. Also, come see us tonight, yeah. Yeah, see you later.
Yeah.
And Sabelo.
At Sabza MK, but yeah, just Google my name, Sabelo Mkhabela. You'll find whatever is necessary.
Thanks again. You guys can take your seats. And this panel discussion was brought to us by Dito Music, their music distributors. And thank you, Wendy, so much for all your support. It's been amazing. Thank you. They do have an exhibition stand, so do check them out.